Several communication practices recommend starting a sales conversation with questions. Some sources document anywhere from 5 to 50 question examples to use in the beginning of a conversation with a customer. However, beyond the wide range of question types and opinion-based guidelines, it's beneficial to scrutinize this conventional wisdom of starting with questions. You'll find this useful because knowing when to ask questions influences your buyer's motivation to stay in the conversation. Sales are sad when the seller is alone. In general, beyond asking questions, it's likely that you are sharing with your audience data related to trends in their industry, and you draw some insights from those trends. And this is because data alone is not useful to your audience unless you give it meaning. So, knowing that data and insights are strong staples in business presentations, you now have two choices. You can ask your audience questions before you offer data and insights, or you can ask questions after. Which approach is better? In one of our neuroscience studies, Group 1 watched a sales presentation where the presenter shared the data and insights and then asked two questions. Let's call this the DIQ group, Data, Insights, Questions. Group 2 attended the same sales presentation and the presenter asked questions first. After these two segments, both groups of buyers were presented with the benefits of a tech solution. According to their EEG and ECG data, there were statistically significant differences between the two groups. The DIQ group had higher valence, meaning that they liked the presentation more. These buyers were also more alert and had more motivation to act on the information. Overall, the DIQ group experienced a combination of high valence, low arousal, and interestingly, low attention during the second question the presenter asked. This combination is associated with a feeling of trust and suggests that by the time buyers view data and insights and then hear questions, they can let their guard down and trust the content more. Instilling trust toward the end of your presentation is important because you can prime the brain for the next segment in the presentation, which is selling the solution. So already you can see the scientific merits of the DIQ method. And here are some additional nuances you'll find practical to your work. During this study, I used a technique that is rare and juicy in neuroscience research, which is hyperscanning, meaning scanning two or more people at the same time. This approach is beneficial because it implies social interaction, which is known to induce changes in neural activity, meaning that people act differently when others are present. Given that decisions are social, it makes sense to capture these changes. Brain synchronization is associated with collaboration, engagement, shared understanding, all desirable dimensions in influencing decisions. In this study in particular, we wanted to see how people's brains synchronize during the sales presentation, which they attended at the same time but not in the same room. So the presentation was virtual, which is prevalent these days. I noted that the feeling of trust I mentioned earlier was useful because the brains of the buyers in Group 1, the DIQ group, synchronized during the solution section of the presentation. And that's exactly when you want people to be on the same wavelength, literally. Neuroscience also helps you challenge conventional wisdom in another useful way, scrutinizing what you think buyers prefer. Prior to the neuroscience study, I conducted a survey with B2B buyers and asked them whether they prefer that a seller approaches them with questions first or last. The majority said they preferred questions first, yet their brains showed otherwise. Sometimes there is a discrepancy between what you think people like and what they actually like, and neuroscience helps us uncover differences between these stated versus revealed preferences. So, as a practical guideline, use the DIQ method, data, insights, and then questions, especially if you present virtually. The DIQ approach will help you keep buyers alert, attentive, and motivated to act, instill trust while asking questions, and positively prime the brain for when you introduce a solution that is important to you.